God, you.
I'm not blank. You're just a nobody.
You're just a nobody. The words, spoken by my son's fiancée, Emma, sliced across the polished mahogany of my own dinner table. Her laugh wasn't joyful. It was a sharp, brittle thing that felt like a shard of glass in my gut. The room went silent. The gentle clinking of silverware stopped. Her mother, Sophia, a woman sculpted from vanity and ice, just smirked into her wine glass, a silent stamp of approval. And my son Michael, the boy I had raised, the reason for every sacrifice I'd ever made, just stared at his mashed potatoes as if they held the secrets of the universe. He said nothing. They thought they knew me. John Kelly, 62 years old, a widower living in a quiet suburban Chicago neighborhood, a relic to be pitied and discarded. They were about to learn that the quietest men often have the loudest pasts. And when they finally got desperate enough to Google my name, their entire world would come crashing down around them. Before I tell you how I dismantled their carefully constructed lives, brick by gilded brick, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from. Your support truly makes a difference, and I love hearing from you all. The rage was a slow burn, a familiar heat coiling in my stomach. I kept my face placid, my hands steady as I held my fork. Just moments before, the dining room had been filled with a fragile warmth. The candlelight danced on the crystal glasses. The aroma of the roast I'd spent all afternoon preparing filled the air. Now, it felt like a courtroom, and I was the one on trial. Emma leaned back, her blonde hair catching the light, a predator enjoying her kill. "What's it even like, John?" she asked, her voice dripping with a cloying false pity. "Sitting in this little house all day, just reliving the glory days?" She gestured vaguely around the room, at the furniture my late wife, Elizabeth, and I had picked out together. "Michael told me you used to wear a suit to work every day. What were you, some kind of clerk?" Sophia chuckled, a low, throaty sound. "Oh, Emma, be kind," she said, though her eyes were anything but. "Not everyone can keep up with the times. Some people just fade." Her gaze swept over me, cold and appraising, as if I were a piece of aging furniture she was deciding whether to send to the dump. I looked at Michael, willing him to meet my eyes, to say something, anything. But he just scraped his fork against his plate, his shoulders hunched in a way that screamed of weakness. My own son, letting this happen. The silence was his complicity, and it cut deeper than any of their insults. I placed my fork down on the plate, and the clink echoed in the tense quiet. Every eye was on me. Emma's, triumphant. Sophia's, smug. Michael's, still glued to his dinner. They thought they had me figured out. Old, irrelevant John Kelly. They were wrong. "Emma," I said, my voice quiet but carrying the weight of a storm. "You think you know me?" I leaned forward just slightly, enough to force her to meet my gaze. Her condescending smile flickered for just a second. "But you don't." The air grew thick. I pushed my chair back, the sound of its legs scraping against the hardwood floor. A declaration of war. "Excuse me," I said, standing tall. My hands were perfectly steady, but my heart was pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I walked out of the dining room without another word, their confused whispers trailing behind me like smoke. In the hallway, I paused in front of the large family portrait on the wall. A younger me, a vibrant Elizabeth, and a small, smiling Michael. A happy family in a world that no longer existed. Elizabeth's painted eyes seemed to follow me, a silent question in their depths. I could almost hear her voice, warm and fierce, telling me not to let them diminish me. Emma's cruel laugh echoed in my head, and a cold resolve settled over me. They would find out soon enough. But first, I needed to remember who I was before I became this ghost in my own home. I turned and walked toward my study, the door creaking open like the cover of a long-forgotten book. The night was just beginning. The study door clicked shut, muffling the sounds of their resumed chatter. The room was my sanctuary, filled with the comforting scent of old books, leather, and polished wood. My desk, a sturdy oak relic from a lifetime ago, stood in the corner. On it was another photo, smaller, more intimate. Elizabeth, laughing, her head thrown back, and a 10-year-old Michael holding my hand at a ball game. I picked up the frame, the cool glass, a stark contrast to the heat still simmering inside me. My thumb traced the edge, and the memories came flooding back, not as gentle waves, but as a tidal force. It was 1997. I was 34, not 62. I wasn't sitting in a quiet house. I was striding through the gleaming glass doors of one of Chicago's most powerful investment banks. The trading floor was a symphony of chaos, phones ringing off the hook, the constant hum of ambition, the air electric with the making and breaking of fortunes. My desk was a disaster zone of reports and half-empty coffee cups. My boss, Harold, a man whose respect you had to earn with blood and sweat, leaned against my doorframe. "Kelly," he'd said, tossing a thick folder onto my desk. "That VP position is yours if you want it. Corner office, big accounts, the whole 9 yards." I wanted it. God, I'd wanted it more than anything. It was the culmination of years of 70-hour weeks and sleepless nights. But just that week, Elizabeth's cough had taken a turn for the worse. The doctor's words were gentle but grim. I could see her face so clearly, pale against the stark white of the hospital pillows, her hand squeezing mine. "We'll be okay, John," she'd whispered, her voice weak but full of that unwavering strength I'd fallen in love with. I looked at Harold, at the folder that held my future, and then I saw Elizabeth's face again. "I need to be home," I told him. The disappointment in his eyes was clear, but he nodded. I left the folder, and my career, unopened on that desk. The memory shifted. It was 2004. Our kitchen was small, the linoleum a little worn, but it was filled with the smell of Elizabeth's baking. Michael was 16, a whirlwind of lanky limbs and quiet teenage rebellion. I was sitting at the table, the checkbook open, writing a check for his private school tuition that made my stomach clench. I was working a less demanding, lower-paying job as a financial consultant to be closer to home, closer to Elizabeth in her final years. The overtime was brutal, but every zero I wrote on that check was a promise to my son. Michael breezed through the kitchen, grabbing an apple from the bowl. "Thanks, Dad," he mumbled, his eyes on his phone, already halfway out the door. He didn't see the stack of unpaid bills beside me or the exhaustion etched into my face. He didn't know I'd turned down another, better job offer just last month so I could be there for his games. Another flash. 2012. Michael's college graduation. The auditorium was vast, buzzing with the proud energy of hundreds of families. I sat alone in the back, my suit feeling a size too big now. On stage, Michael beamed, clutching his diploma. "I want to thank my friends," he said into the microphone, his voice echoing through the hall. "You guys got me through this." The crowd applauded. I waited, my chest tight with a desperate hope, but my name never came. I clapped along with everyone else, my hands feeling heavy as lead, my smile a carefully constructed mask. Back in the present, I set the photo down, my breath catching in my throat. I had given up my ambition, my pride, my entire world for him. And for what? So his fiancée could call me a nobody while he sat in silence? I had become invisible, a shadow defined only by my past sacrifices. I sank into my leather chair, the old springs groaning in protest. My gaze fell on a desk drawer, slightly ajar. Peeking out was the corner of my old address book. I hadn't touched it in over a decade. I pulled it free. The leather cover was worn soft with use, the pages yellowed at the edges. It smelled of time, of a life I had intentionally buried. I flipped through the pages. The names written there in my own hand were ghosts from another era. CEOs, investors, lawyers, political fixers. People who had once called me a force of nature, a man who could move markets with a single phone call. I wasn't that man anymore. Or was I? Emma and Sophia thought they could bury me with their petty insults. They had no idea about the weight I had carried, the strength it took to walk away from power for the sake of love. My finger stopped on a name. Frank Sullivan. A private investigator, the best in the city, who owed me a favor so big it didn't have an expiration date. A smile, the first real one of the night, tugged at my lips. The rage was still there, but now it had a direction. It had a purpose. I closed the book with a sharp snap, slipped it into my jacket pocket, and walked out of the study. I had a call to make. The living room was cast in shadow, with only a single lamp painting the worn furniture in a soft, forgiving light. The cordless phone felt alien in my hand, a relic from a time before everyone carried their life in their pocket. My thumb hovered over the numbers for Frank Sullivan's private line, the digits burned into my memory. Emma's sneer echoed in my mind. "You're just a nobody." My jaw tightened. I dialed. Each beep was a drumbeat in the oppressive silence. My heart hammered against my ribs, a chaotic mix of fear and exhilarating fire. What if he didn't remember me? Worse, What if he did and just laughed? The line clicked. A gruff, familiar voice answered. "Sullivan." "Frank," I said, my own voice steadier than I felt. "It's John Kelly." There was a pause, a beat of silence that stretched for an eternity, and then a low chuckle rumbled through the receiver. "John Kelly, as I live and breathe. Been a minute, hasn't it?" "Too long, Frank. Too long," I replied, forcing a lightness I didn't feel. "I need to talk. In person. Are you free tomorrow?" Another pause, this one more calculated. I could almost see him on the other end, his sharp eyes narrowing. "What's this about, John?" His tone had shifted from surprise to professional curiosity. He knew this wasn't a social call. "Let's just say," I said, my voice dropping, "I'm calling in an old favor." I heard him take a slow drag from a cigar. "The club? Noon?" he asked. "Noon is perfect," I confirmed. "Looking forward to it, Kelly." The line went dead. I placed the phone back in its cradle, my hand trembling slightly. The room felt charged, the air thick with possibility. I walked to the window and pulled back the heavy curtains. The street was quiet, the houses of my neighbors glowing with lives I couldn't imagine, lives untroubled by the storm that was brewing inside my own. My reflection stared back from the dark glass, a tired old man, yes, but for the first time in years the eyes looking back were sharp. They were the eyes of the man I used to be. The man who closed a multi-million-dollar merger deal in 1995 over a steak dinner, earning a grudging smile from a rival who said, "You drive a hard bargain, Kelly." That man wasn't gone. He had just been dormant. Emma and Sophia hadn't broken me. They had woken me up. I slipped the address book back into my pocket. It felt less like a book and more like a key. Tomorrow, I would meet Frank, and I would start turning that key. The next day, I pulled into the parking lot of the Oakbrook Hills Golf Club. It was a world of manicured greens and quiet privilege, Sophia and Emma's natural habitat. I wasn't dressed for golf. I was dressed for business, in one of the old suits Emma had mocked. Inside, the air smelled of money, expensive cigars, aged leather, and entitlement. Frank was at a table in the corner of the bar, a glass of bourbon in his hand. His hair was thinner, but his eyes were just as sharp. "John Kelly," he said, his voice a gravelly welcome. "Didn't think I'd see you in a place like this again." "Times change, Frank," I said, sliding onto the stool opposite him. I got straight to the point. Sophia Wilson and her daughter, Emma. They're involved with my son. The name hung in the air between us. They think they can walk all over me. I need to know what I'm dealing with. Frank swirled his bourbon, the ice clinking softly. He took a slow sip, his eyes scanning the room before locking back on mine. "Sophia's living on borrowed time," he said, his voice a low conspiratorial murmur. "That big house in Winnetka? Second mortgage, maxed out. She's been dodging creditors for months. She's putting on a good show, but the whole thing is a house of cards." My pulse quickened. This was better than I'd hoped. "And the daughter?" I pressed. "Emma's a hunter," Frank said bluntly. "Your boy's trust fund is her big prize. She sees him as her ticket out of the mess her mother's made." The smug, superior smiles from the dinner table flashed in my mind. They weren't powerful. They were desperate. It was a weakness I could exploit. "How bad is it?" I asked. "Sophia's debt." Frank let out a short, humorless laugh. "Bad enough that one good push could send the whole thing tumbling down. She's banking everything on Emma marrying your son to bail her out." He leaned forward, his expression serious. "You sure you want to get into this, John? It's a messy game." I met his gaze without flinching, my hand resting on the address book in my pocket. "I'm sure." He studied my face for a moment, then gave a slow nod. He slid a business card across the table. "You didn't get this from me. Call this guy. He's a forensic accountant. Discreet. He'll get you everything you need, bank records, hidden assets, the works." I picked up the card. It felt like a weapon. The game was on, and I was finally ready to play. That evening, back in my study, the business card lay on my desk next to my laptop. The cursor blinked on a blank document, a rhythmic, waiting pulse. Emma's voice, "You're just a nobody," was a goading whisper in my ear. A slow smile spread across my face. Not anymore. My fingers flew across the keyboard. I was drafting a formal invitation, on meticulously faked letterhead from a prestigious children's charity, addressed to Sophia Wilson. I chose the words with surgical precision. "Esteemed guest of honor, keynote address, in recognition of your tireless philanthropy." It was a trap perfectly tailored to her vanity. Sophia, with her desperate need to maintain appearances, would leap at the chance to preen in front of Chicago's elite. I knew from Frank's contact that her accounts were practically empty. Her credit was shot. My plan was simple and brutal. She would accept the invitation. She would give a grand speech, full of empty platitudes about giving back. And then, at the height of the live auction, she would make a grand, public pledge she couldn't possibly afford. When her card was declined, not once, but twice, in front of everyone, the whispers would start. Her perfect mask would crack, and the humiliation would be exquisite. A pang of doubt hit me. Michael. He would be there with her. He would be caught in the fallout. What if this pushed him further away? Straight into their arms for good. I gripped the edge of my desk, my knuckles white. No. I couldn't stop. They had drawn first blood. I would show them who John Kelly really was. I printed the invitation, folded it into a plain, unremarkable envelope, and addressed it in careful block letters. It felt heavier than a simple piece of paper. It felt like a grenade with the pin pulled. I slipped it into my coat and walked to the corner postbox under the faint buzz of the streetlights. As my hand was on the handle, I pictured Sophia's face as she opened it, her eyes lighting up with smug satisfaction. She'd have no idea she was reading her own social death warrant. I dropped the letter in. The soft thud echoed the closing of a door on her old life. As I turned to go, a car slowed as it passed under the streetlight. A sleek, black BMW, Emma's car. My heart leaped into my throat. Had she seen me? The car continued on, but the sight of it, so close, solidified my resolve. This was just the beginning. The night of the charity gala was a spectacle of wealth. The air in the grand ballroom was thick with expensive perfume and the murmur of 100 conversations. I stood near a marble column in the back, just another face in a tuxedo, watching. And then I saw her. Sophia was on the raised dais, glowing in an emerald green gown, soaking in the spotlight. "This cause means so much to me," she declared into the microphone, her voice resonating with rehearsed passion. "Which is why I am thrilled to pledge $50,000 tonight." The crowd applauded politely, but I saw the auctioneer's assistant at the side of the stage frown at her tablet. My heart began to pound a triumphant rhythm. The assistant whispered to the auctioneer. He stepped forward, his professional smile looking strained. "Mrs. Wilson," he said, his voice amplified throughout the silent room, "there seems to be an issue with your payment." Sophia froze. The blood drained from her face. "An issue?" she repeated, her laugh high and brittle. "That's impossible. Try it again." The auctioneer glanced at his assistant, who gave a slight shake of her head. "I'm sorry, ma'am," he said, his voice now devoid of warmth. The transaction was declined. A collective gasp seemed to suck the air out of the room. Whispers erupted like wildfire. Overextended, living beyond her means. I always knew. Sophia gripped the podium, her knuckles white, her carefully constructed composure shattering like glass. Across the room, I saw Emma grab Michael's arm, her face a mask of fury. "This is your family," she hissed, her voice a low, venomous dart I could read on her lips even from a distance. "Dragging us down." Michael just stood there, his shoulders slumped, a pawn in a game he didn't even know he was playing. The sight of his pain was a sharp jab, but the sweet satisfaction of Sophia's downfall overwhelmed it. This was my doing, my plan. The first cut was the deepest. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Lisa, Elizabeth's oldest and dearest friend, a woman as sharp and loyal as they come. "John, we need to talk. I have something on Emma." I typed a quick reply, my mind already racing. Sophia's fall was just the beginning. The next piece of the puzzle had just landed in my hand. The next morning, I met Lisa at a cozy cafe in Lincoln Park. The smell of coffee and pastries was a comforting contrast to the Cold War I was waging. Lisa's smile was warm, but her eyes were serious. "I heard about the dinner, John," she said, getting right to it. "What Emma did, Elizabeth would have been furious." She leaned forward, her voice dropping. "But this is bigger than just a cruel insult. Emma's not just a gold digger. She's tangled up with a professional con artist, a guy named Vincent Cole. Their plan is to use Michael's trust fund to finance a much larger scam and then disappear." The coffee cup suddenly felt heavy in my hands. I'd known she was greedy, but this was a whole other level of deceit. This was leverage. Real leverage. "How do you know this?" I asked. I have friends in places you wouldn't expect, she said with a sly smile. Elizabeth always said you were the smartest man she knew. So, what's the plan? A new strategy began to form in my mind, a web to trap not just Emma, but her partner too. We set a trap she can't resist, I said. A fake investment deal, something too good to be true. Lisa's eyes lit up. I love it. I can pose as a representative for a wealthy anonymous investor. She's arrogant. She'll bite. We spent the next hour mapping it out. As we were leaving, Lisa reached into her purse and pulled out a faded photo of her and Elizabeth on a beach, laughing into the wind. For luck, she said softly. She'd want us to do this. I took the photo, my throat tight. Elizabeth's smile was a reminder of what I was fighting for. A few days later, I was in my study when my phone buzzed. A text from Lisa. She's here, in the office, recording now. My pulse hammered. Emma had walked right into our trap, a sleek, borrowed office in downtown Chicago, with Lisa playing the part of a lifetime. Another text. She's talking. She just named him, Vincent Cole. I exhaled, a long, slow breath. We had her. Lisa sent the audio file, a small digital bundle of dynamite that contained Emma's downfall. I didn't listen to it. Instead, I copied it onto a blank USB drive, slipped it into a plain envelope, and addressed it to Michael at his office. No note, no signature. He needed to hear the truth from her own lips. That night, as I drove to the post office, I saw Sophia's car parked outside Michael's house. I pulled over down the street, my heart pounding. Raised voices carried on the night air. I crept closer, hiding in the shadows of a large hedge. Sophia was frantic. "It's your father!" she shrieked, her voice ragged with panic. A story about her financial ruin had been anonymously leaked to a high-profile Chicago gossip columnist, another well-placed call I had made. "He's trying to ruin me. He's a bitter, jealous nobody." The old insult, now wielded in desperation. I peered through a gap in the curtains. Michael looked torn, uncertain. "You don't know it was him," he said, his voice firm. "Leave it, Emma," he snapped when she tried to pile on. He was doubting them. The seeds of truth were beginning to sprout. I slipped away before they could see me. The USB would arrive tomorrow. The final act was about to begin. A few days later, my phone rang. It was Lisa. "She's losing it, John," she said, a note of triumph in her voice. "Sophia, she's at home, frantically Googling you." A slow, cold smile spread across my face. I could picture it perfectly. Sophia, in her lavish, mortgage-to-the-hilt home, her perfectly manicured nails clicking away as my past scrolled across her screen. Not the nobody she had imagined, but John Kelly, former VP of Sterling and Finch Investments. Articles detailing deals that had shaped the city's skyline. Mentions in financial journals. A photo of me at a gala with Elizabeth on my arm, looking every bit the power couple they so desperately wanted to be. The truth would be hitting her like a tidal wave, drowning her in the reality of her colossal miscalculation. The final confrontation happened in Michael's living room. He had called me, his voice strained. When I arrived, Sophia and Emma were there. They looked diminished. Sophia's face was pale, her usual poise replaced by a desperate, pleading look. Emma fidgeted, unable to meet my eyes. "John," Sophia began, her voice trembling. "We didn't know. Your career, we misjudged you. I'm so sorry." Emma mumbled a forced apology, her eyes darting towards Michael. They weren't sorry for what they did. They were sorry they got caught. They were sorry they had picked a fight with someone who refused to be their victim. I looked from their pathetic faces to my son, and for the first time I saw clarity in his eyes. He saw them for exactly what they were. I held up the photo of Elizabeth and Lisa. "You saw what you wanted to see," I said, my voice cold and steady. "You mocked me in my own home, in front of my son. You dismissed a lifetime of sacrifice because it didn't fit into your shallow world of appearances. Your apologies mean nothing. They're just another move in your game." I turned to the door. "It's too late for that." My eyes met Michael's. There was pain in his gaze, but beneath it, there was a glimmer of the respect I had lost so long ago. Understanding. I walked out into the cool evening air, leaving the wreckage of their lives behind me. Later that week, Michael came to my house. The silence between us was heavy at first, filled with years of unspoken words. "Dad," he finally said, his voice thick with emotion, "I was blind. I let them poison how I saw you. You sacrificed everything for me, and I never I never even thanked you. I am so sorry." The words were a balm on a wound I didn't know was still so raw. We talked for hours, really talked, for the first time since Elizabeth died. The chasm between us finally began to close. He told me Emma was gone, had packed her bags the day after he confronted her with the recording. Sophia was a social pariah, her name synonymous with scandal. It was over. I had won back my son. The fight had taken its toll, but it had also forged something new. Lisa and I, bound by our love for Elizabeth and our shared victory, found a new purpose. She gave me the key to Elizabeth's old downtown office, which had sat empty for years. We decided to start a foundation in Elizabeth's name, a charity dedicated to helping families navigate the financial burdens of long-term illness, a way to turn our pain into something positive. We were building a future, not just dwelling on the past. Today, I stand here, at Elizabeth's grave, the late afternoon sun warm on my back. The key to the office is cool in my pocket. "I did it, love," I whisper, my hand resting on the smooth granite of her headstone. I showed them. Michael's back. He sees me now. You'd be proud. A gentle breeze rustles the leaves of the old oak tree above, and for a moment, I feel her presence, a quiet approval. They called me a nobody, and in a way, they were right. I had let myself become nobody, a ghost haunted by sacrifice, but they forgot that even ghosts can learn to fight back. My story isn't just about revenge. It's a lesson that true strength isn't found in a job title or a bank account. It's in the quiet integrity of your choices, in the love you give, and in the unwavering belief in your own worth, even when the world tries to tell you that you are nothing. It's about remembering who you are and fighting for the respect you deserve. If my story resonated with you, I'd be honored if you'd like this video, subscribe for more, and share your own experiences with finding your strength in the comments below. It's a simple click, but it helps stories like mine find the people who need to hear them. Thank you for listening.